Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And I hope everybody's ready for the weekend. Maybe take some time off and relax, but also maybe find a good game to play. And actually, I might have a few games that you might want to check out over the weekend, and we'll kind of talk about that here in just a minute. But also, Xbox looks to be closing in on a pretty major partnership. Now, this has been rumored for a little while now, but it looks like it's actually happening, so we'll kind of go over that here in just a bit. And then you also have PlayStation, and their crossplay policies continue to be problematic. Yes, yet another game shows exactly why PlayStation's policies on crossplay is not exactly ideal, and this isn't really good for either developers or customers alike. And yeah, I'll kind of talk about why here in just a bit. With that said, though, we do have plenty of things to talk about today, so let's just go and jump right into the first topic. And like I said before, I do have a couple games that you might want to check out over the weekend, especially if you have the Nintendo Switch, because there's actually two demos that's going to be available to you all today. This includes Monster Hunter Stories 2 and then Neo: The World Ends With You. Now, Neo: The World Ends With You, of course, is also coming to the PlayStation 4, but Monster Hunter Stories 2, as of this moment, is a Nintendo Switch exclusive. But either way, both of these are highly anticipated JRPGs that are releasing next month in July. First up, you have Monster Hunter Stories 2, which releases on July 9th, and then Neo: The World Ends With You releases July 27th. Now, whether you're already sold on these games or if you're a little bit on the fence, these demos will suffice in both situations, because not only will this be a good way for people to test out these games for the first time and see if they do like them, but also in both situations your progression will transfer to the full game when they do release. So that's a nice little bonus right there. And like I said, whether you're looking to try these games out for the first time to see if you actually like it enough to actually buy it, or if you just absolutely cannot wait to play these games before that official release, well, you can go download these demos, and in both situations, they will serve their purpose. Next up, let's talk about the Metroid franchise for just a moment, because since that initial reveal for Metroid Dread, the internet's reaction towards this game has been absolutely insane. There has been a lot of hype for Metroid Dread, and actually this might be the most that I've seen the community hyped for a Metroid game possibly ever. I mean, we've kind of talked about the Switch effect in the past, but a lot of games that's been announced this generation for the Nintendo Switch has done better than they have historically done in the past. And that's a thing that I'm really excited for when it comes to Metroid Dread. Metroid is an extremely high-quality franchise, and some may even consider these games to be the best of all time. I mean, if you really think about it, Metroid laid the foundation for modern Metroidvania games today, and then the Metroid Prime trilogy was absolutely fantastic as well. But historically, unfortunately, Metroid has not been the best-selling Nintendo franchise. And that's probably one of the reasons that it's been nearly 2 decades since we've seen a brand new 2D Metroid game. And that's exactly why I'm so happy to see the reactions that we've been seeing with Metroid Dread. If there's any Nintendo franchise that deserves this type of recognition, it would be Metroid. And I think with Metroid Dread and the amount of hype that it's getting and it coming over to the Nintendo Switch, which, I mean, that Switch effect is a very real thing, I do think that Metroid Dread could end up being the best-selling Metroid game of all time, and we're already seeing that hype translate to the older Metroid games as well. Yeah, so check this out. Thanks to Pigs for Ben over on Twitter, we now know that Metroid has made it to the top charts on the Nintendo Wii U. And that is actually really cool to see. Now, the Nintendo Wii U isn't exactly the best-selling console in the world, but people are actually going back to the Nintendo Wii U to simply play Metroid Zero Mission as well as Metroid Fusion. Both these games are old Game Boy Advance games, and for whatever reason, these games are not really available on any other platform besides the Game Boy Advance and then the Nintendo Wii U through Virtual Console. Nintendo, I really don't understand them sometimes. Nintendo needs to bring the Virtual Console over to the Nintendo Switch because, I mean, Game Boy Advance games on a Switch, yeah, sign me up for that, but, you know, that's a whole different story. Regardless, a lot of people are going back to the Wii U simply to catch up on the Metroid franchise. And you know what, for that matter, I'm just going to go ahead and point you all in another direction. If you are going to go back and play some Metroid games on the Wii U, you also have the Metroid Prime trilogy available on the Wii U as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. But yeah, I'm definitely liking all of this recognition that Metroid is suddenly getting online. Let's keep that up, and hopefully Metroid Dread sees phenomenal success, because I want more Metroid games like this in the future. With both Metroid Prime 4 and Metroid Dread this generation, let's make these games sell well and make Metroid a mainstay for Nintendo devices going forward. Let's not have another case where it takes 2 decades to get a 2D Metroid, and however long it be for another Metroid Prime game. Let's make these games sell well. So, like I said before, I'm really happy to see so much hype around Metroid Dread. Moving on, let's talk about Xbox and that rumor that Hideo Kojima is working on some kind of game with Xbox. This rumor has really been making the rounds in the last couple months, but we haven't gotten an official confirmation for this game just yet, and there might actually be a reason for that, and I'll get into that here in just a moment. But Jeff Grubb, which has proven to have some accurate sources in the past, now he's got some things wrong, but for the most part, he has been a very accurate leaker, and he says that the deal between Xbox and Hideo Kojima is close. Right now, they're just trying to figure out the details, but they are close to signing some kind of contract. And that's where things start to get a little bit more interesting, because what exactly is this game that Hideo Kojima is going to work on with Xbox? Now, there has been speculation that this could possibly be a Metal Gear Solid game, but that actually does not sound like it's going to be the case at all. And this is one of the reasons that we probably haven't really been hearing much about this game, is because this game is actually very early in development, according to Jeff Grubb. It's so early that he believes that Phil Spencer himself doesn't even know exactly what this game is. They're really signing on Hideo Kojima because of his talent, more or less. But, you know, truthfully, I think that's a smart decision, because Hideo Kojima is a legendary developer. I really like Hideo Kojima myself. Metal Gear Solid, phenomenal. Death Stranding, I know that one was a little bit more of a mixed bag for people, but I still think it's a good game, and I just think that Hideo Kojima is so incredibly creative. Just roll the dice and see what happens. If it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, but at least give him an opportunity, because in the past he has proven that he can make good games. And I think that's exactly how Xbox is looking at this situation. There's a lot of PlayStation gamers that really like Hideo Kojima, and if they want to bring those PlayStation gamers over to the Xbox brand, then this would be a great way of doing it, by signing an exclusive game to Xbox that has a well-known and beloved figure that PlayStation gamers like. So I just think it's smart all the way around. But the question still remains, what exactly will this game be? And that's something that we really probably won't know for a long time, but what we do know is that apparently this is going to be some cloud-based game where Hideo Kojima partners up with that newfound Xbox team focused on cloud experiences, headed up by Kim Swift. Now, Kim Swift is incredibly talented, as she's worked on games like Portal and Left 4 Dead in the past. So we already know that she can make really good games. And then you have Hideo Kojima, which, as we all know, he makes really good games as well. So I think this could end up being a special experience when we do eventually get it. It certainly has the talent at the very least. And with Hideo Kojima and his creativity, I will be interested to see what he can do with cloud-based technology. Now, I know some people are going to be a little apprehensive when they hear that this game will be using cloud-based technology, but I really don't think you should be too concerned about that, and the reason I say that is because we don't know exactly what it means. And then also, there's already several games in the market that takes advantage of cloud-based technology, including Flight Simulator. Yes, from my understanding, Flight Simulator does use cloud-based technology, so you can definitely combine that type of technology with a traditional experience and make an amazing game like we saw with Flight Simulator. So we'll have to see what Hideo Kojima has planned with his game. But yeah, I'm definitely intrigued to see what Hideo Kojima can do with Xbox and some cloud-based technology. Knowing Hideo Kojima, we could end up seeing something very creative, and that right there excites me, as it's hard to find wholly unique experiences in the game industry anymore, and that's exactly what this game could end up being. Again, though, based off what Jeff Grubb said, this game is still very, very early in development, so don't expect to see anything about this game for a long period of time. Let's talk about PlayStation's policy on crossplay, though, because once again, they have found themselves in a bit of a tricky situation that fans aren't exactly too happy about, and that is Borderlands 3's crossplay functionality. So what's happening is that Borderlands 3 now offers crossplay between the Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, Mac, Stadia, and PC via Steam and the Epic Game Store. And, well, that's really exciting. Anytime we get crossplay in games, that's always a good thing, but as you probably noticed, PlayStation was not included on that list. So what exactly is happening here? Well, actually, let's go ahead and take a look at Gearbox's very own Randy Pitchford and see what he had to say. Good news or bad news first? Good news, an update for Borderlands 3 has been prepared for release that includes full crossplay support across all platforms. Bad news, for certification, we have been required by the publisher to remove crossplay support for PlayStation consoles. And right there, it's very clear that once again, because of PlayStation's policies on crossplay, Borderlands 3 will not have crossplay on PlayStation consoles. And really, this is just not good for anybody, and I'll kind of explain why. One of the most important things when it comes to a multiplayer game is to have a large user base that can sustain a game's life for a long period of time. And well, the more platforms that can interact with one another, well, that means a larger user base for everybody. And that is why cross-platform is so important for not just players, but also developers as well. They want these games to survive for years and years, and if you just have one platform trying to survive on its own, well, that's a much smaller user base, and as more people leaves, well, the game will die off sooner. And then when it comes to something like cooperative gameplay, that's a little bit different, but at the same time, it's great for gamers because it'd be nice to be able to play with a friend that may not exactly have the same platform as I do. So that's why crossplay is incredibly important, especially in games like fighting games. Fighting games, I think every single fighting game should have cross-platform play as soon as they release. That's just my opinion, but they absolutely need a large user base. Fighting games live and breathe on their online communities, so they absolutely do need crossplay, but that's an entirely different story. What I will say, though, is once again, PlayStation has dismissed crossplay, and I think this is bad for the gamers as well as developers. I do think that Sony needs to take a step back and put the developers and gamers first here. For a company that is quote-unquote for the gamers, PlayStation does a lot of things that seems to go against that. In this case, for sure, it seems like it might be more for the business, and I just think that's the wrong route to take in a situation like this. Right here, you need to not only put the gamers first, but also the developers first. It's important to these developers to have an active and large user base so they can sustain their games for a long period of time. As of this moment, though, Sony is reportedly the only platform holder that requires compensation for lost revenue during cross-play. So, yeah, I think they need to go back and change some of their policies regarding crossplay. But let me know what you think about all this. Maybe you have a different opinion on this matter, so let me know in the comments below. And on to our final topic of the day, and I'm going to try to make this one real brief, but we got an update for that blue box game that just everybody seems to be talking about. Now, if you don't know what's going on with this blue box game, there's this big conspiracy theory that their upcoming game that they teased earlier for the PlayStation 5 by the name of Abandon is actually Silent Hill developed by Hideo Kojima. And when you start to look into this conspiracy theory, yeah, there's definitely a lot of coincidences, but I really don't think this game has anything to do with Hideo Kojima or even Silent Hill for that matter. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about all that, but I just don't think it does. This whole situation has just been strange from the beginning, and the story just keeps getting crazier and crazier. It kind of reminds me of the conspiracy theory for Mass Effect 3 after a lot of people weren't exactly happy about the ending for that game. So there was a conspiracy theory about indoctrination and all that, so it just kind of reminds me of that a little bit. But nonetheless, we were supposed to get an update for this game this week that was supposedly going to debunk all these rumors, but well, that actually didn't happen after all. Instead, that update got delayed all the way back to August instead, so we're still going to have to wait a little while before seeing this new Blue Box game, Abandoned. And before I go, let's go ahead and take a look at the poll of the day, where I asked you all, do you think Killer Instinct deserves a studio dedicated to the future of KI, similar to Halo and Gears? And this is something that really was on my mind yesterday because Phil Spencer had shown public interest in continuing the Killer Instinct franchise, but they're still kind of waiting for the right team to do the job. And that sounds awesome and everything, but let's just go ahead and say that Xbox does license out Killer Instinct yet again. What happens when they finish up with that game? Will Killer Instinct just be put on ice once again because, well, they don't have a developer to work on the game? And that's where this question comes in. What do you think that they should do with the Killer Instinct franchise? Does it deserve to have its own dedicated studio? And well, 70% of you did say that yes, it deserves its own dedicated studio, whether they acquire a fighting game studio or simply build one. And here I very obviously 100% agree with you all, as I do firmly believe that Killer Instinct deserves its own dedicated studio. Killer Instinct on the Xbox One had success, and that was confirmed by Phil Spencer. And it also has a pretty active and vocal community wanting a return for Killer Instinct, and I think this franchise could continue to grow with the Xbox Series. The problem with Killer Instinct, though, is that Microsoft doesn't actually have a studio to develop another Killer Instinct game. Now, Iron Galaxy would be the perfect choice for a Killer Instinct sequel because, well, they did a phenomenal job with Killer Instinct on the Xbox One, but as of this moment, it seems like they're a little bit more busy with other games. So they can't exactly make a new Killer Instinct game, and that's where the problem for Killer Instinct lays. What is Microsoft supposed to do with a franchise if they don't have a studio to actually develop it? And that's why I think that they should possibly just look to form their own studio or acquire one. Now, if it were me, I'd probably go into the direction of building a studio because they already have their own internal KI team, so they could kind of start there. And if they could get Adam Keats on board, which works over at Iron Galaxy, that would be amazing, but that's a big if. The thing about an acquisition, though, is that a lot of you all seem to really want NetherRealms to be acquired and work on a new Killer Instinct game. And okay, NetherRealms is definitely a very talented fighting game studio, but at the same time, I'm not 100% convinced that they are the right studio for a Killer Instinct game, or at least with the mechanics that they use in Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat's fighting game mechanics and Killer Instincts are vastly different. So if they were to work on a Killer Instinct game, they would have to change their formula quite a bit. So yeah, Iron Galaxy would still be my first choice to work on another Killer Instinct game, but if they couldn't do it, I would instead want them to form their own studio and then try to get the right people to develop the game. Obviously, you're going to need people that are passionate about Killer Instinct and know how a Killer Instinct game plays. I don't want a Killer Instinct game to play like Mortal Kombat, but that's just my opinion. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.